Sometimes winning a lot of games in a regular season can make you basically the villain or the hero or basically the odds-on favorite to win a championship. Sometimes that's good and other times it's bad. It's so bad that the four holders of the most regular season wins in the major sports leagues don't have a championship. None of them do. For baseball, the 116 win Seattle Mariners don't have a championship. They didn't win the championship. They actually didn't even make the World Series. They lost to the Yankees. In basketball, the 73 win Golden State Warriors of 2016 were up 3-1 in the final, but then fell in three straight games. And we all know about LeBron's block and Kyrie's three-pointer in Game 7. In football, the Patriots were 16-0 in the regular season, but couldn't win the big one, the championship against the Giants. Well, this team may have been surpassed by the 2023 Boston Bruins. When they won 62 games, it was huge because they did it in a different era than the other 62 win team in the NHL before 2023. We're talking about the 19 Tampa Bay Lightning, the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning. Hello out there, we're on the air. It's Cutter with NHL time. Tensions blow, the whistle blown, and the pucks go down the ice. Some teams just want to win the cup and do it with a smile. Hey, that is cool. Up on the River Nile. Oh, the good old hockey game. Who will come out on top? Will a team get through the cup by any means necessary? Oh, the good old hockey game. It's the best game you can name. And I'm have no shame. I will simulate those hockey games. Woo! So the Tampa Bay Lightning started out life as an expansion team in 1990, a shocking development because the state of Florida weren't really serious about an NHL team. They weren't thinking about putting Florida into the NHL and all that. And the WHA, the World Hockey Association, did have a team in Miami called the Screaming Eagles. Unfortunately, though, that didn't even pass. Miami was supposed to be the big team, and Bernie Parent was signed with the Screaming Eagles, but Miami could not get the funding, so they actually moved to Philadelphia to become the Philadelphia Blazers. And then after 1 year in Philly, the Blazers moved to Vancouver. Nevertheless, Florida didn't seem like a good hockey team. I mean, baseball, they were chasing baseball for many years, and Tampa almost got the White Sox. They almost had the Mariners. They almost had the Giants, that area, before finally sending on an expansion team in 98. Basketball took a while. It took till the 80s to get a team in Florida, as Orlando and Miami both got themselves NBA teams. Tampa's never had an NBA team. In football, Tampa got the Buccaneers in 1976, and they sucked, going 0-14 in that season, the first season. Miami was the juggernaut of Florida sports because, the Dolphins were the AFL, then to the NFL. Nevertheless, Tampa ended up getting the NHL expansion team in a shocker because, Ottawa was a no-brainer to get an expansion team. But Tampa, you put a hockey team in Florida? This is before Gary Bettman even was commissioner. Or dickwad to me. The fact of the matter is that the Tampa Bay Lightning were big. The name Lightning came after Phil Esposito was at a meeting and saw a bolt lightning. Unfortunately, there was a investor who wanted to sink money into the Tampa Bay Lightning. Unfortunately, though, he became a fraudster, and Tampa could not get the money, and it almost meant that they would have had to default on their $50 million expansion fee. But thankfully, there were companies to save it. A Japanese company, Kokusai Green, even helped out too. Tampa played in a very tiny arena called Expo Hall. They did beat the Chicago Blackhawks, who were the defending Western champs of 1992, by a score of 7-3. As Chris Contos put up not one, not two, but four goals in that game. Tampa, that would be their high point in their inaugural season. And then they went to the Eastern Conference and had a rivalry with the Florida Panthers, who were coming into the league. Tampa in 1996 made the playoffs, and they took on the Philadelphia Flyers, and even were up 2-1 on the Flyers as Alex Selivanov scored a famous Game 3 overtime goal and sent the Tampa Bay Thunderdome reeling with joy and all that. And yes, the Thunderdome was where Tampa played their hockey games. And that the fact that a few years later it would be turned into Tropicana Field for baseball. So Tampa put Philly on the cusp, but Philly won the next 3 games. Tampa would suffer through things. Vincent Lecavalier was basically moved, and the new Tampa owner called him the Michael Jordan of hockey. Really? So anyway, Vincent Lecavalier aside, Tampa looked okay and all that. But they kept building, building up, building. And by 2003, they finally won a playoff series as Martin St. Louis was the hero against Washington. In 2004, Tampa did much better. They won the Eastern Conference 1 seed, and they looked pretty impressive. They took out the Islanders quite easily. They took out the Habs quite easily and struggled against the Flyers, but still beat them in 7. Tampa went to the Stanley Cup Finals against Calgary and were down 3-2, and it looked like Calgary was going to win the Stanley Cup on home ice in Game 6 and knock Tampa flat. Not so fast. Tampa won the game thanks to St. Louis' double overtime goal. Former Flame, if you can believe that. So the series had to go to Game 7. And of course, Tampa won that thanks to Fedodenko's 2 goals. But what's lost in it was that Tampa got lucky because a puck from Martin Gelinas, a shot seemed to go over the red line midair. And for some strange reason, ABC caught that and CBC didn't. The NHL said they were carrying on the CBC feed. So basically, the ABC feed was there. The goal would have went in, and maybe Calgary would have won the Stanley Cup. Kind of a Gary Bettman excuse, I bet, to try to get hockey, give Florida a Stanley Cup before Canada got one. Of course, we've been suffering since 1993, as of this taping, of course. Tampa seemed to work well with Martin St. Louis, Vincent Lecavalier, Ruslan Fedotenko, and of course, Nikolai Khabibulin. There were some struggles, and then Steven Stamkos came on a white horse, if you will, and helped Tampa out in the 2010s, especially the 2019 season, which we'll get to. However, sometimes failure brings joy and all that. After the failure of the 2019 season, Tampa then were the best team in 2020 in the East, and they actually ended up winning the Stanley Cup in the pandemic bubble of Edmonton. 2021, they won the Stanley Cup in their home state against the Montreal Canadiens. And in 2022, they looked like they were going to do something that nobody thought that would be possible and had not been done since 1983. A team with three-peat. Not even the pesky Edmonton Oilers. Not even the the Oilers of the 80s. Not even the 90s Penguins or the 90s Red Wings could do it. Could pull off 3 straight titles. Tampa was going to do something that shocked a lot of people. They were the first team to go for a three-peat and actually make the Stanley Cup Finals since 1984. Well, the Islanders were won 4 straight and were looking for 5 in a row, but Edmonton stopped them in the finals. And just like that, Colorado stopped Tampa from doing that in the finals. So Colorado won the Stanley Cup that year. Tampa still did pretty good, getting to 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals. Of course, they have been snuffed out by the Florida Panthers in the 2025 playoffs. So that's why I'm doing Tampa right here, right now. So let's take a look at the 2019 team. So anyway, the 2019 Lightning season, the 27th season for this franchise. They clinched the playoff spot March the 8th. They won the President's Trophy, which is rewarded to the team with the most points in the regular season. They won the Atlantic Division for the second consecutive year and won 62 games, matching the 96 Detroit Red Wings. But the 23 Bruins would set that record. The Lightning fell in the first round to the Columbus Blue Jackets. It's the first time since 2014 they were eliminated in the first round. In the offseason, they got taken out by the Capitals in Game 7 of the Eastern Finals. They would sign forward prospect Carter Verhaeghe to a 1-year contract extension. People forget that Carter Verhaeghe was a Tampa prospect. Everyone knows about what he's been doing for the Panthers as of late. Victor Hedman won the Norris Trophy for top defenseman in 2018, which was pretty good and all that. Then they re-signed JT Miller to a 5-year contract extension. And Martin St. Louis was a first ballot induction into the Hall of Fame. So then on July 1st, Ryan McDonough was signed to a 7-year contract extension as the Lightning made sure that he kept going and all of that. And then re-signed Nikita Kucherov to an 8-year deal worth $9.5 million per year. And then Steve Yzerman decided to resign as GM after 8 seasons. Practically, it was a plan to maybe go back to Detroit. All that. So anyway, the Lightning won the President's Trophy, won the division, won the conference with 128 points, 62 wins, 16 losses, 4 ties. And that wasn't even close to the Red Wings record. The Red Wings won 62 games, but they only had 130 points, so they didn't even catch that. The Bruins and Leafs qualified as well with 107 and 100 points respectively. Montreal missed out with 96 points. They didn't even get one of the wild card spots. In the playoffs, they were actually up 3-1 on the Columbus Blue Jackets at one point, and then for some inexplicable reason, they couldn't score goals worth a damn. And in the final 3 games of that series against Columbus, they only scored 5 goals. 5. They gave up 7 goals in game 4. A lot of empty nets, but anyway, they were outscored 15-5 in the final 3 games, and Columbus out of freaking nowhere, the last team to make the playoffs, did their job and forced the Tampa Bay Lightning out of the playoffs. It was just unbelievable. Vasilevsky, who had a 2.4 goals against, 39 wins, he was nothing at all of that. Well, the All Star game had Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, and John Cooper and Andrei Vasilevsky there. But look at the awards Tampa won. Nikita Kucherov won the Art Ross Trophy for most points in a season. In the season, Nikita Kucherov also won the Ted Lindsay Award for Player MVP. The MVP voted by the Players Association and of course by the media and coaches, which made him the Hart Trophy winner for MVP. Andrei Vasilevsky won for Goaltender of the Year, the Vezina, and Anthony Cirelli was part of the All Rookie team. Dan Girardi even got his 900th career game, as long as Braden Colburn. They didn't really make too many trades during the 2018-19 season. So that's what made things a little bit weird. They lost the Coon, Chris Kunitz, to Chicago. They did sign a few players and all that. Nothing of note. The 2018 NHL draft didn't help anything. Gabe Fortier, but that did not make any sense. So anyhow, the 2019 Lightning won 62 games, just like the 1996 Red Wings, and like the 1996 Red Wings, they didn't even get to the final. So what would happen if the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning did well? Let's find out. So anyhow, uh, the Lightning would have hosted the Boston Bruins, who took out the Leafs in Game 7 of the first round. The Leafs actually had 3-2 series lead, and I was on the edge of my seat. And then Game 7 happened. I was watching at Bills. Boston won. I went plop out of the chair and onto the floor. Nevertheless, the 2019 Lightning would face the 2019 Bruins for a trip to the conference finals. I believe Carolina was the opponent, weren't they? I think so. Yeah, I think it was Carolina against Boston. Anyway, Boston went to the Stanley Cup Finals in real life in 2019, but lost to those pesky Blues. Game 1 saw the Lightning win 3-1, thanks to Kucherov and Cernak scoring goals. Braden Point made it 3-0, Krejci made it 3-1, and no goals after the second period. Not a lot of time for Anthony Cirelli or Yanni Gourde. Yoki Nordstrom had a minute, 23 seconds. Vasilevsky, Kucherov, and Tuukka Rask are your 3 stars. Game 2 sees the Lightning win 5-3 as Marchand scored first for Boston, then Brady Point. Alex Killorn a pair of goals in the second period. Marchand scored to make it 3-2, but Stamkos made it 4-2. Kucherov scored to make it 5-2, and Tuukka was taken out for Rask. Jake DeBrusk made it 5-3, but it was TLTL. The three stars being Braden Point, Alex Killorn, and Nikita Kucherov. Halak sits up all 9 shots. So at 2-0 in this series, Boston thought they were going to be okay, and they were. Boston wins 3-1 on home turf. Krejci, Krug, and Krejci again scoring for Boston. Braden Point for Tampa. Krejci, Tuca, and Marchand are your 3 stars. Game 4 sees the Bruins win 2-1. So Tampa loses again on the road. Marchand and Krejci made it 2-0. Braden Point made it 2-1. Marchand was given a 10-minute unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, but Tampa could not take advantage of it. Not too many penalties. Rask, Vasilevsky, and Krejci are your 3 stars. Yeah, goalie duel. The goalies had to be 1-2. So the question on everyone's lips would be, what would Game 5 be like? How about a Tampa win? Yep. Point Stamkos and Stamkos. Then Stamkos scored 12 seconds into the second period to score not only a hat trick, but a natural hat trick. Ryan McDonough, the former Ranger, made it 5-0, and then they replaced Tuca. But what was weird is Boston scored 4 straight goals. They scored Pasternak, Krug, Bergeron, and Bergeron. Kucherov would score late in the third period, make it 6-4. Stamkos, Kucherov, and Bergeron are your 3 stars of the game. Halak did okay. So the question is, would Boston win Game 6 at home? The answer is no, they wouldn't. Tampa would have beaten Boston in Game 6 in overtime. Tyler Johnson scored for Tampa. Braden Point made it 2-0. Danton Heinen made it 2-1. Krejci made it 2-2. And then Victor Hedman, Alpin Lakachian from Kucherov and Point made it 3-2. Point, Kucherov, and Hedman are your 3 stars. So Tampa would have won in 6, and then it would have been Carolina. Yep, Carolina would have had the momentum. Yeah, Peter Mrazek. Was it Mrazek in that? Yeah, Mrazek was the star goalie. So yeah, Carolina would go to Tampa. Game 1 saw Tampa crush Carolina in defined powder 6-1, giving up a Justin Williams goal, but didn't matter. Braden Point scored twice, and then Stamkos scored 3 straight goals. Natural hat trick for him, making it 5-1 and putting Mrazek out of the net for Nedeljkovic. So the draws makes it 6-1, and Stamkos, Kucherov, Point your 3 stars. Game 2 in Tampa Bay sees the Lightning win again 6-1. And Stamkos scored twice. And Kucherov scored twice in the first period, 4-0. Lucas Wallmark scored for Carolina. Then Braden Point and Victor Hedman scored, but Mrazek again being replaced by Nedeljkovic, who did much better than Mrazek. So Kucherov, Stamkos, Point the 3 stars. So Carolina would probably change goalies. I would too. I would change goalies. And it didn't work. Tampa crushes Carolina 5-0. Kucherov gets 4 goals in the game. Sergeyev scored 1. So yeah, so Kucherov would have scored 4 goals and knocked Carolina on their feet. Nedeljkovic would have sucked. Kucherov, Vasilevsky, and Point, your 3 stars. Well, Vasilevsky, the second star, obviously Kucherov for. And Tampa would sweep. Yes, Tampa would sweep. Slavin would score in the first period, and then Kucherov made it 1-1. And then in overtime at 3:53, Stamkos from Palat. And Tampa would have swept Carolina into fine powder and all that. Yeah, were their 6th consecutive wins. So yeah, Tampa would have had the momentum. It's weird how they put Cirelli for only 355 and Gord for 127. Carolina, everyone played 13 minutes, including Saku Menken and Greg McKay. Vasilevsky, Nedeljkovic, and Kucherov, your 3 stars. So Alex doing his job. But yeah, Vasilevsky just out of this world. So Tampa would have faced St. Louis in the Stanley Cup Finals because St. Louis was not only the Western representative for 2019, they were the champs. The Eagles. So yeah, so Jordan Binghamton was the star goalie, taking over for Jake Allen late in the season. Game 1 in Tampa would see the Lightning win in overtime. They were up 3-1. Hedman with 2 goals. Stamkos scored. Ryan O'Reilly for St. Louis. Then St. Louis scored 3 straight goals. Braden Shen, Oscar Sundquist, and Robert Thomas. Alex Killorn scored to make it 4-4 in overtime at 5:28. Tyler Johnson, Tyler the Creator, as they call him, from Colburn and Callahan. There's Ryan Callahan when you need him. Every Blue player played 15 minutes. In Tampa, they had their guys. Hedman, Robert Thomas, and Braden Shen, your 3 stars. Wait, why Robert Thomas? I scored a goal and assist, I guess. Game 2 sees the Lightning win 5-4. Ryan O'Reilly scored twice to make it 2-0 St. Louis, and Tyler made it 2-1. O'Reilly got the hat trick 3-1 Blues, and it looked good for St. Louis to win. Kucherov made it 3-2. Then Stamkos made it 4-3. Well, Bozak, former relief, made it 4-3. Stamkos scored, and then Braden Point scored to make it 5-4. Yeah, Andrew Cirelli played only 21 seconds. Stamkos, O'Reilly, and Kucherov, your 3 stars. Tampa would head to St. Louis, where they would have crushed the Blues 5-1, basically saying, we're not going to have a close game this time. Kucherov, Stamkos, and Kucherov in the first period. Ryan O'Reilly made it 3-1. Stamkos made it 4-1. And then Stamkos got a hat trick. So Binghamton was replaced. So basically, Stamkos would have done his job. Stamkos, Kucherov, and Point, your 3 stars. Jake Allen probably would play game 4. I mean, you might as well. And the Lightning would have finished them off 5-1 as Jake Allen couldn't do a thing. So yeah, Kucherov, Vasilevsky was on another level, with only giving up like 1 or 2 goals. Yeah, I know Stamkos should have. Yeah, Stamkos would have battled for the thing. Point, Johnson, Matthew Joseph, and Stamkos scored, and then Stamkos made it 5-1 after Tarasenko scored. So yeah, Stamkos and Vasilevsky would have been fighting for that number 1 Conn Smythe Trophy thing, and 10 straight wins for Tampa. Yeah, Tampa would have went cruising through it. Stamkos, Point, and Vasilevsky are your 3 stars. But yeah, Binghamton did much better than Allen. But I think the Lightning with Vasilevsky would have done their damn job. And Tampa would have swept the crap out of St. Louis and basically made St. Louis 0-4 in Stanley Cup Finals in history. But one can only dream. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.